What's up, AfterBuzzers? It is that time again. We're talking about Season 1, Episode 5 of The Purge. And guess what? We've got a very special guest in studio, so stick around.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Ooh, there it is.
There's the siren.
Missed that.
Oh, okay.
Just give it a second. Give it a second. Kick in here.
Yeah.
Let me sip this tea.
It's purge time. Purge time.
There it is. Guys, you know what the siren means. It's that time again. That's right. We're talking the Purge After Show right here on AfterBuzz TV. My name is Ty Matthews. You can find me on all forms of social media at Ty Matthews PMA. To my left, joining us. We missed you while you were gone, but
I'm back.
Back here, holding down the fort. You can find me online at I am Danny Royce because it's Danny Royce.
What's up, everyone?
To Danny's left, our resident news and gossip fan. You can find her on the My Hero Academia after show, amongst many others. You can find her online at It's Jaimi Gray because it's Jaimi Gray.
Hey guys.
To Jamie's left, of course, we're going to be going to him with your survival tips later on in the show. You can find him online at Ollie Dreamer because he's Olli Genin.
Hey guys.
But guys, we got some exciting news. First time this season joining us on the couch in the AfterBuzz studio, that is Penelope herself. Yeah. Please welcome Ms. Jessica Garza.
Yes.
Hey,
It was good.
Very excited.
Jessica, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And especially for this episode. It's a very penny-heavy episode.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect timing.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm very excited to get into it.
Of course. So before we get into the show itself, because there's a lot to extrapolate, lot to break down. Let's talk about your involvement with The Purge itself. How did your involvement with the show come about? And second part, how familiar were you with the franchise up to that point?
For sure. I auditioned for The Purge back in January of this year. Went through kind of a pretty normal audition process. I went in, I read for producers. I met with our showrunner, Thomas Kelly, over Skype, and we had a great conversation. And then I met him a week later in Los Angeles, and that's when I tested. And about a couple days later, I found out I got the role of Penelope.
There we go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
Previously, I hadn't seen the movies, but I had been so aware of them. It's a tradition for my dad and I to go to Universal Halloween Horror Nights every single year.
Absolutely.
And as I'm sure you guys know, it's always a maze or a scare zone or something.
Of course. It's right up the street from our studios.
Yeah. And even like a couple years ago, me and my cousin, we had to put it together a last-minute Halloween costume, and we were Purgers.
There you go. See, that's become a good go-to, as you see, flanked by our mask.
Easy.
It is. It's a good one. So throughout my audition process, I had seen the 3 movies that were out, and now I'm here.
There you go. Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Well, let's get into this episode. Let's start out with Penelope's kind of part of the episode and her history with Henry. Now, what do you guys think of the show has been so heavy on flashbacks and parsing out bits of the story, and so we got to see the history between Penny and her ex-boyfriend Henry, who Miguel was not too fond of.
No.
I mean, I don't blame him.
I know.
Which
when we were looking at previous episodes on our previous after shows, we had talked about what role Henry played and who we thought he was, and we were right. So this was wild. I think that you definitely went on an emotional ride, just as Penelope's character. Right. So kudos to you. But this whole episode was just very wild. We learned so much about so many different characters, and I was blown away.
Right. Yeah, this episode was like just crazy because we're at like an arc now where we're learning a lot more about a lot of people, and as far as Henry goes, I'm like, okay, this guy is crazy. Yeah. But then we learn about his parents and not being around and all that, and what shape that puts on his mental shape. So I just think it was just a crazy roller coaster, and I loved your performance in here, especially in that tent. We'll get into that a little bit later.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I just think that your role, kind of realizing that you're not a victim, just because you've been through all this abuse from Henry, it doesn't mean that you're going to continue on as that victim. You're going to fight on. And even if you do die in the Purge, which I hope you don't die, but it just showed so much strength of Penelope, and I'm so happy to see her kind of finally turn, and hopefully she's not about going in the invisible anymore. So. Well, we'll see. There's 5 more episodes, so I'm super excited.
Absolutely, and so we talked a little bit about kind of the sort of non-linear fashion of the show. We keep kind of jumping from past to present. Is it how kind of jarring or how difficult is it to go from being like, all right, everything's fine, you know, we're back in the past, you know, just talking about relationship stuff, to now you're almost about to be burned at the stake.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, because if we didn't do it that way, I would have worn just a blue robe for 4 months straight. And I did, but you know, every once in a while we get to mix it up with different flashbacks here and there. But it's exciting. Like you know, as we were filming, I didn't know how this ended. So as scripts would come out each week, I would learn the same way you guys are learning what happens.
Okay.
So it's interesting to watch it unfold for everyone too.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially kind of even just 5 episodes in, seeing the arc that you've charted already, going from being this kind of this full-fledged member of this cult to where, you know, we talked a little bit about what's happening in the tent. You're still kind of reciting that pledge, you know, that the cult instills in people, but it's almost like you're doing defiantly.
Yeah, absolutely. It is defiantly. It is to kind of piss Henry a little bit off, because he does feel betrayed by the fact that I joined this cult rather than finding, you know, solace in him.
Right.
So, that chant has changed over a couple of episodes. And
I think especially in that tent, you like found your own strength. As before, your strength was found in that cult, and I think like we just got a great opportunity to see Penelope just stand her own ground and say, okay, I'm not going to be a victim. So it was great.
Yeah, I think there's totally a difference between, like, for Penelope being purged by a random purger on the streets versus being purged by someone who already took so much of her power and her voice away. And that's when it kind of clicks in her mind, like, I was prepared to die tonight, but it's not going to be by you. And if it is, I'm not going to give you fear. I'm not going to give you that satisfaction of it. Do it.
Right.
And I'm going to take it.
Right.
I loved that scene, because there was a part where you were like, you were already broken, and you were like, just kill me, because you were like, I'm not the victim, you are. I thought that was such a dope scene. But then I was like, okay, so, but still, how the hell did you get on this bus? Like, I'm just like, Penelope, what's going on?
Yeah, well, I think the scene at the very end.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's exactly. Yeah.
So exactly. That's kind of a perfect segue. We get a little bit jumping forward to the end of the episode when Miguel leaves, and we get that sense of, you know, that sense of abandonment kind of, you know, Penelope's begging Miguel not to go off to war, but it's this kind of thing where it's like all he knows is how to fight, so he's trying to do it, you know, to some sort of end. And of course, in comes a social worker named Tavis. Full blue. Even
Tavis.
her eyes, I never realized how blue her eyes even were up to this point.
Girl's got a theme. And she's sticking to it.
Nothing if not on brand.
More power to her.
Her shirt was blue, and she was ready for it.
And you could even before she kind of came into focus, you could see just that sort of blue coming in.
Right.
Like something's about to happen.
Yeah, and it was not only just abandonment, it was like betrayal, you know.
Right.
And I was like, okay, now everything makes sense. Why Penelope's on this bus, you know, she's finding a reason to live, and you know, and then she Tavis swoops in when like she's the weakest. So and that's her way to get in people's minds.
Yeah, and those
crazy.
In those flashbacks, you kind of lost everything.
Right.
Excuse me.
He's crying.
Hold it together. A minute, guys. It was very emotional. No, but like that beatdown that you witnessed, Penelope witnessed of her brother, the two men that she, well, I don't know if you love Henry anymore, but you definitely cared for him despite the abuse, and just seeing him get beaten the hell up and dragged across the street.
Oh yeah. And let's talk about that. I was about to jump into that fight scene, because
please do.
When we first met Henry, I was like, something's off about his eyes, but I couldn't really place it. I was like, maybe that's just kind of his eyes. And then we see that fight scene, and oh my god.
Yeah.
Not since Glenn on The Walking Dead.
Yeah. I was thinking about Glenn. That exact.
That eye, my god.
The thing was
like,
smushed in.
So it's fair that he would hold a bit of a grudge.
Right.
I like how the most like brutal parts are not in the Purge.
No,
Right.
it was all beforehand. Exactly.
Wow, that's insane.
So now we'll get into the other kind of subplots of the show, but before that, AfterBuzz, we got a super brief message for you. Dan, you want to take it away?
Hey, AfterBuzzers, our network produces after shows for nearly all your favorite TV shows, from dramas to reality TV, sci-fi, and more. And there's no network that works harder to serve television fans like we do. But we need your help. We're asking that you please subscribe to one or more of our YouTube channels. And by subscribing to our channel, YouTube will suggest content that's tailor-made for you, and you'll help AfterBuzz continue to grow. And if you're worried about those pesky notifications, don't be, because they're optional. So hit that subscribe button now for this channel, and check out our other AfterBuzz YouTube channels as well. Let us know you did so in the comments, and we'll shout you out.
There we go.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Like us, follow us, subscribe, comment.
Spotify too now.
Yeah.
Spotify too.
Oh, yeah,
everywhere.
we're on Spotify.
Yes.
Yes. We dropped it on Spotify.
I love Spotify.
Subscribe.
There it
Yeah,
is.
show us some love everywhere.
Now let's get in real quick. Let's talk about Jane Barber and the Matron Saints. And
Matron Saints. Yeah, I love these guys.
now this is a thing while we were watching on USA right before we went live, when it goes to commercials, sometimes you get these little factoids about the Purge. Something that I didn't realize, and I don't think has been referenced anywhere else, is that the Matron Saints were founded by Mary Sandon from the original Purge film. After everything happened to Mary Sandon, portrayed by Lena Headey of Game of Thrones. Yeah, exactly. So she apparently in the universe of the Purge is the one that founded the Matron Saints to kind of keep what happened to her from happening to anyone else.
Yeah.
Loved it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Right? As the season goes on, I'm loving that we're seeing more and more kind of direct tie-ins to the events of the films.
Right. Yeah, but that, as well as like in a lot of TV shows now, we're starting to see a lot more women empowerment, and I love it.
Yes.
And when they brought it to the Purge and like just kicking it to the man, it's good job.
Yeah, one of the factoids last week when me and Jaimi hosted, I noticed, or I think they just said it in the show, was that for every man killed, every one man killed, every
3 women.
3 women, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Okay, sure.
So definitely women are targeted a lot more in the
Exactly.
Purge.
Yeah, I think that's what's my favorite thing about Jane's storyline right now is I think people have been begging for the Purge to get into crime that isn't murder, and it's getting into kind of the sexual assaults and sexual harassments that go on in this night.
And that's exactly right. Ever since the first Purge film, that was my exact thought is sure there would be murder, but there would
Every
have to be
crime.
so much more of those kind of crimes.
Right.
And so it makes sense that something like the Matron Saints would be kind of founded to take sort of like this hardline stance against it.
And they're not telling it from like a man's point of view in terms of what he would go out and do to women in Purge Night. It is from the women's point of view, and that's how you do it in a way that is entertaining and also like new and careful, you know what I mean, and good. It's a good way to tell that story too.
Exactly, yeah. And so I think with characters like Jane and with characters like Senator Rourke from the Purge election year, we get into the kind of how gender politics play a part in the world of the Purge. But what's interesting is the kind of the dynamic between Jane and the Matron Saints, because they're taking a very extreme, very kind of vigilant stance, you know, branding guys in the face with hot branding eyes.
I was like,
And
really?
we sort of see Jane's kind of limit. Like, all right, like I'm on board, like with the message, sure, but
At least not on the face, though. Somewhere else, like.
Well, I mean, it's like it's better like that than killing, I guess.
But I think,
I would rather them killed him.
and I think
Like,
that's the
kill him.
point. Yeah, is if it was anywhere else, then it could be hidden.
Right.
But,
Yeah. You want to see it. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's painful.
But you know, Jane is very, you know, I was trying to chart out like kind of different alignments, like who in the show would be kind of which alignment, and I think Jane is as close to lawful good as we're gonna get. She even says to the Saints, like, no, you know, the law will take care of this, but the law also created the 20th Amendment, which led to the Purge. So.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about kind of tracking this whole arc with Jane and the Saints?
I mean, I'm worried about her. Just first of all, Jane, I'm just wondering like where her mind is, because when she got in the car, I was a little worried because I'm like, what if the car explodes? Like I'm always thinking worst case scenario. Right. What if her brakes are out and she can't even break her car?
Right.
It's Purge Night.
Getting into a car on Purge Night, you never know.
And I thought Homegirl was gonna kill her when she popped up in front of the car. So I was
for
like,
sure.
what are you doing? So for me, as far as with Jane and kind of what she's trying to do, I like Matron Saints. I actually like them. I'm not really down with the whole pig branding, but I still like them and you know their cause.
Sure.
But as far as her and seeing Jane kind of wander off, and then we see her go to meet David.
Yeah.
I just don't know if she's thinking all the way through. Calling her mom, leaving a trail, knowing that you called the hospital. Like I'm just trying to figure out, you know, how does your mom play into this?
Yeah.
How does David play into this? And then the hit woman that you have, where is she at? It's just all kind of still up in the air. But I think The Purge does a great way of kind of leaving you at a cliffhanger so that you want to see more episodes.
Exactly. And I think putting those pieces together, it seems like, and this, I could be completely wrong, but from what I put together, it seems like Braca is going after David, and now Jane is trying to sort of warn him, like she's getting cold feet all of a sudden.
That could be bad though.
You know?
Yeah,
That could be really
there's no
bad.
going back. That's
Okay,
what
then
that's what
she's
Purge
gonna
said.
she's gonna stop the killing, right? The purge. And then he's gonna fire her when like the next day.
He's like,
Jane,
oh.
what are you doing, girl?
You tried to kill me.
You're not gonna get a refund. I'm just saying.
It's
Just
crazy.
saying. This is my opinion.
Exactly. And so it's interesting after, because we're halfway through the season, but these subplots are still being kept sort of, with the exception of like you and Miguel, obviously, they're being kind of kept sort of bespoke and sort of separate from each other. How is that kind of watching from afar and seeing the other kind of plots play out?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. You know, I read all of their storylines on paper, so it's fun to see it play out. You know, every so often I would, you know, go and visit them or see their sets, but it's a totally different story seeing it all come together as a whole.
Yeah.
Well, and especially when we're getting into these sort of huge kind of like dystopian set pieces like the Gauntlet or the Carnival of Flesh.
Yeah.
That's got to be kind of sort of surreal to be surrounded by stuff like that, you know?
Oh yeah. No, that Carnival of Flesh it's the most insane set I've ever seen, and I think it'll be the most insane that I see for a very long time.
They should definitely do that at Universal Studios.
Exactly.
I would love to see something
Well,
like
and
that.
exactly,
crazy.
that's the thing. Like you said, we've gotten so many different kind of Purge themed mazes and scare zones
Yeah.
at Halloween Horror Nights. So yeah, this would
Like
be
they gotta up it up a bit.
exactly. If we could get a whole Carnival of Flesh scare
Carnival of
zone,
Yeah.
that's exactly what's gonna haffen.
That would be incredible.
Exactly. Yeah, they've got that maze based on the first Purge now. And actually, I got a little pamphlet. If you give the psychologist in line a password, he gives you a pamphlet for that original Staten Island experiment, the first Purge.
Yeah.
That's dope.
That's
It's cool stuff. It's very, very cool stuff. Guys, if you're watching us on YouTube, we appreciate the support. Make sure to leave us a thumbs up, leave us a
Yes.
comment. But remember, if you're on iTunes, we appreciate you all the same. Remember, download, comment, review, subscribe, rate. 5 stars if you're nasty. Keep talking to us. We want to keep talking to you about the Purge. Let's keep this conversation going. We're going to keep doing that. Let's talk about the party that Rick and Jenna are at and what we see kind of happen to the NFFA
Oh, it
in
got
this
lit.
episode.
It got lit.
They got
In more
lit,
ways
yeah.
than one.
To say the
Yeah.
least.
Yes.
The party that crashed that party for sure. I knew something was up. Like as we were talking previous episodes, like this party, something's gonna happen. I didn't quite have this in mind, this whole revolt, but
Yeah.
it's awesome. I knew that. What is the maid's name?
Y'all knew Catalina.
Catalina.
Y'all
Yes. I knew Catalina.
You guys
was
were
like,
calling
she's
it
there.
since day one.
Yeah, I was like, what's she's up to? But yeah,
I
she's
was
just
seeing
leading
tweets
it.
And I was like,
Something's there. Well,
Loved it.
we see that little nod that she gives kind of
yeah,
the
it's
other
like,
sort of
it's
staffer
time.
in the beginning, like, oh, it's about to pop up. All right, man.
Get ready.
But before all of that, we'll get to the kind of the revolution and the anti-NFFA sentiment. But before that, what are we thinking about this kind of ongoing love triangle between Rick, Jenna, and Lila? Jenna keeps trying to kind of save Lila and keeps trying to use these opportunities to protect her, and Rick does not care.
Yeah.
Listen, that was perfect. That's good. I feel like it's gonna backfire on her.
Right.
I will
Yeah.
save
Yeah.
most of that for predictions.
Sure,
but
sure.
me and Ollie had talked about this last after show where I feel like it could backfire in such a way where someone is watching Jenna and Lila, not just Rick. Okay, I think that Lila's parents are also watching. There's cameras. This is
Okay.
a huge house, and I feel like something bad could happen. Also notice we didn't really see a lot of Lila at
Yeah.
all
No,
this episode.
hardly any, huh?
yeah.
So
After
my
we saw so
senses are
much of her
tingling.
last week, yeah.
We saw a lot of her
Yeah.
last week, and then to not see her at all this week, that's a sign.
Right.
Yeah.
Door locked.
You just
yeah,
gave me a
that's sign.
prediction, but I'll save it.
Now, as we talked about, we see that Catalina is kind of part of this anti-NFFA revolution, which we also see in the films. Michael K. Williams, Carmelo, all of that kind of, it sort of grows and sort of evolves into this huge kind of revolution. I wanted to ask you about kind of the sort of the political message that the movies and the series kind of gets into. We've got this whole, the Purge is obviously a thinly veiled, kind of method of class, annihilation, I guess you could say.
Sure.
Right.
But it's interesting seeing how much people are kind of brought together by that,
Yeah, I think like with the revolutionaries in particular in this episode, they really take the message of taking, we all have power as citizens, and it's how we use it. You know what I mean? So, voting, getting out there and speaking your voice and marching, all of that is our world's version of storming an NFFA party and shooting everyone up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
It's a very wild and intense metaphor, but I think that's kind of where it stands.
Yeah, and I think horror kind of gets a bad rap at times. It's like, oh, it's just mindless violence. When I think there's a lot of social commentary within, especially the Purge, and it's also awesome for you because you're a part of this ensemble that has it's a diverse cast too. So how does that feel to be able just to be a part of this production in particular?
It feels incredible. I mean, speaking on the violence part of it, our showrunner made it very important that the violence wasn't just to be gory or it was supposed to tell story, and it is supposed to show how it affects us. It's not just we're not in the first episode with Arthur, when you see him getting hacked to pieces, you don't see him getting hacked. It goes straight to like my reaction on the bus, because it's not about that. It's about how it's affecting me and everyone else on that bus.
Exactly.
So the violence speaks to the characters in the story rather than blood and gore.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think when people first hear that there's going to be a Purge series on the USA Network, I think people's first reaction is like, okay, how much can they really show, on network television? But I think that forces the filmmakers and the cinematographers to get sort of creative in those moments. It cuts to reactions, and we see like silhouettes when Arthur's getting hacked to pieces. We see that eerie shot of the shadow being projected onto the bus.
Yeah, our show's very character driven. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and because DeMonaco had mentioned that before, he actually said, he was like, I don't want anyone to just think it's going to be like you said, gory, where it's just all this blood. Because when you think of the Purge, you think death, you think all of these just really hard things to watch. But I think they did a great job at climaxing it, because when we saw Henry get, beat into a pulp, it shocked us. But then it's like we're watching the Purge. So I think that they did a really great job at doing that to kind of keep us at bay and make us want to keep watching. Yeah.
Well, and I think what you said earlier about the fact that we see so much graphic stuff happen before the Purge, I think that's kind of by design. We're lulled into this false sense of security, and like, okay, it's just a couple, like having an argument, nothing's gonna happen.
Well, it also 2 minutes later, to like, does the Purge actually work?
Right.
You know what I mean? If people are beating each other up and committing crimes throughout the rest of the year, is this night really all that it seems to be?
Exactly. And I think then that's kind of a point that we've talked about before, because in, for example, in the first Purge, people are content just to kind of do drugs and party more than anything. Like, nobody's really killing anyone until they kind of let Skeletor loose.
It just takes one.
Exactly.
Exactly.
To the party and shut it down. It just takes one.
Because I think left to their own devices, obviously there would be a few bad apples, but for the most part,
of course,
people just want to be left alone. Now let's kind of circle back around. Let's talk about Miguel and his sort of pursuit of Penelope. He's riding with this collector. They're on their way to the Carnival of Flesh, and at the last second, I wasn't expecting that fight to pop up that quickly.
I didn't expect that either. But I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, Miguel, don't trust him.
Don't
trust him. You're gonna be another victim. But I didn't expect that at all. And then when he rescued the mom and the son, I'm just like, how ungrateful can you be? Just go, just get out of there.
To be fair, like, while he did save them, just telling them, okay, now go. Like, how much is he really doing for them? He says that was
gave him a chance.
Exactly. That was one thing that I wrote down. Just hunker down and you'll be fine. Like, isn't that easy?
Right.
Really? Just hunker down?
It's like, give him the gun at least. Like, there you go.
Please.
You're fine.
But then, yeah, he kind of, he takes his badge, he makes it into the carnival, and we see more of this whole world that we saw last week.
It was kind of crazy to see a soldier he knew in the military.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of seeing the flip side of that coin, someone that decided to fully embrace the purge.
Right.
Yeah. To see a complete opposite of yourself, it was very kind of oh my gosh. So I'm keeping my eye on that soldier. I think he's gonna come back and do something.
Really? Okay.
That's the part where Henry in the promo for next week says our government encourages us to do the same thing. To kill people.
I saw it.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And then it also you ask yourself about Miguel's soldier ethics, and is it going to be a weakening aspect in later episodes where he just hesitates or he holds back on certain things. So it's interesting to look at.
I think that's why it may have been a little bit unsettling when he saw, the other soldier who he used to
right, exactly.
be in the Marines with, because it's Marines. He knows, their morals, their standards, but also what he's capable of. Because just seeing even Miguel, beat Henry to a pulp, he's like, when I see that and I see what Miguel can do, it's okay, so what can this guy do?
Right.
And he knows what they're all capable of, especially when you're in the military and the things that they see. That's to me, it's just the thought of it. That's what scares you the most.
And that shows the two ways our parents affected Miguel and Penelope. The trauma of that is, Henry says, you're sad. That's the difference. It's Penelope kind of went the sad route, and Miguel went the anger and aggression and violent route.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because that was another thing that kind of jumped out at me, is that fine line when something traumatic like the purge is going on. Where does that line lie between being sad and being mad, and how can that kind of affect your mindset during something like this?
Yeah, I mean, as you can tell, it ends up with you in a cult, or
There's also that.
So it's anything's possible.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of that cult, it's so interesting. We talked a little bit about kind of your character's arc and how at first she was willing to die because she wanted to go to the invisible. She wanted to kind of give herself over in the name of this cult and, in the name of helping other purgers. Now she's telling Henry to kill her, like we talked about, kind of defiantly, just look, if I take away your agency, who's the victim here?
Yeah, and I think seeing Miguel is a little bit of a snap back to reality too. I did a lot of research about cults in preparation for filming, and a lot of the ideology behind it is isolation.
Yeah.
So I would assume Penelope has not seen Miguel in months, if not a year, because they don't want you to be sucked back into your normal life. And so seen him for the first time since that scene at the end in the rehab center is a total shock, to Penelope's system.
Right.
And that's definitely going to have effect on her too.
Exactly. And that's such a powerful moment, just seeing you guys kind of lock eyes. Finally, 5 episodes in, halfway through the season.
I was so happy to see you guys together. But one thing I want to know is Penelope gonna just beat somebody's ass? At any point throughout this show, I'm when we were all talking about this in previous after shows, we were just we just need everybody on that bus to just get up on tables and just go.
Let's do
I just
this.
need something to happen. So I'm I don't know if they've had you do any training or anything, but I want to see that, Jessica.
There's a lot of really cool stuff coming up.
Oh, okay, that's good enough for me.
Amazing.
She's gonna make Henry lose his other eye.
Right.
There it is,
There we
exactly.
go.
Oh my God.
That eye is creepy.
In that promo, when we see his knife get so close to Miguel's
Oh,
eye,
yeah.
boy.
Eye for an eye.
That is rough.
Right.
That is rough.
rough.
We're going to keep talking about the show. We're going to keep talking about predictions. But Ollie, we've got a very special segment every week where our resident survival expert, Ollie, gives you helpful advice. So for this week, here are your helpful purge tips from Olli Genin.
Thank you so much, Ty, for that wonderful introduction. First off, I want to give a shout out to the chat. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Steve Herman in the chat says, great job tonight, Jessica. Your performance was amazing.
Thank you.
Also, shout out to Cassandra. She's loving your performance as well. She loves your outfit. She's a loyal fan in the chat.
Yeah.
So this
Very
week,
cool.
Jaimi helped me with a very special segment, WWJD. What would Jessica do? So, Jessica, you're going to help me with this special segment,
gosh.
okay? You're in the hot seat right now. So it's okay. This is a safe space, unlike the Purge.
No purge.
For sure.
So, what would Jessica do? So, where would Jessica be on Purge Night?
I would be at home.
Okay.
For sure. Try to be as safe as possible.
All right.
Yeah.
Where would Jessica be, or who would she be with?
Oh God, I guess the people I love the most, you know what I mean? At least if I go out, we're all going out together.
Maybe get some bodyguards too, but
I was gonna say, what are we thinking about security?
Like Miguel's good
I
security.
was on a show with like Navy SEALs previously, and my thought was always like when people would ask me like who would you survive the purge with, it was like a Navy SEAL.
Right.
They
Yeah.
can do anything.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Genius.
But not a Marine?
Yeah,
Miguel,
Navy
get your
SEALs.
sister.
I don't know.
Listen, it's taken 5 episodes.
Okay, I get it. You're like, okay, find me already. The bars
Right,
with the
right.
nuns, like, what are you doing? I get it. Okay.
real quick, 3 essential items that you would have on Purge Night.
Okay, if I'm at home, I guess some kind of weapon.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I'm not totally knowledgeable about what would be the best for me.
We're talking about something blunt or something sharp.
Something that shoots.
There we go.
There you
Okay, there we go. Good answer.
And then let's just go with some snacks, some purge snacks.
You see, it's a neglected part of
is.
Purge Night.
She's resourceful.
And then like whatever's good on TV on Purge Night.
There you go.
I want to stay inside. I'm trying to keep safe.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. Would you be
Nice.
watching the Gauntlet? Otis's Gauntlet.
I feel like you have to support the purge.
That's like on a special. Yeah, that's a special.
Yeah, I mean,
thing.
Should be
Team play.
watching Netflix or Hulu.
Right.
And lastly, you've been on the Purge, obviously. Penelope, you've lived through it. So
Yeah.
what is your advice to any people who are afraid of going into the Purge?
Well, I think my first advice would be like everything that happens not on Purge Night, which is just be nice, be polite, be respectful, patient, I think so.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And then just stay home, keep those grudges down,
Yeah.
release it through like passive aggressive moments at work where you like eat someone's lunch, like do something like that.
But then you get Allison. You do that, you get Allison.
Exactly. Don't play Allison.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much
There we
for having me out
Nice.
this week.
That was good.
I don't take any credit for that. That was all you, Jessica. Thank you for your survival guide tips this week.
Very
Purge
Really
tips from
appreciate
Jessica
Thank you.
Garza. There we go. And of course, we would be remiss. We cannot miss a crucial installment of Miss Jaimi Gray's News and Gossip.
News and gossip.
All right. I was going to say, here's my music. All right, you guys. News and gossip is always super exciting. So last week we kind of talked about Colin and Gabriel, but it's all about the ladies tonight. The future is female. So first we're going to start with Amanda Warren, who plays Jane Barber. She was tripping this episode, but it's okay. She is doing a lot of great things. She's involved in a new film, and she's promoting it on her Instagram. It is called Monsters and Men, and we have a trailer that we are going to play for you. Hit it.
Please just back up, sir.
Oh, snaps.
6 dudes, oh my God!
Oh.
Monster.
What's happening about that Larson shooting?
Is that her?
If he wasn't resisting arrest, he'd still be here.
So what do the police want with you?
They want me to keep quiet.
Everywhere I go, I'm reminded of what happened.
So if I resist arrest, you're gonna shoot me.
Cities are gonna keep burning. Kids are gonna keep getting shot. And cops are gonna keep getting off. But you have a ticket out.
This looks very familiar. Very timely. All right, you guys.
Oh, nice.
And the thing is, it's now playing. So if you are interested in that, of course, make sure to look it up. Also, follow Amanda on Instagram at Amanda Warren. So congrats to her. She's involved in this film. And I believe they showed us a quick snippet of her in the very beginning of that trailer. So make sure you guys check that out. But next, we have Hannah Anderson, who plays Jenna. And we have a couple things about her. So one of the first photos that I'm going to show is she is featured on the So Many Shows website. And she had an interview with them. And there were a lot lot of great fun facts. So one of the first ones, if you go to the second interview portion, she mentions that she had never seen The Purge before. So let me just read a little bit of what that said. They asked her, we'd love to know if you were a fan of the Purge movies and if that played a part in you taking this role. And she says, the horror genre generally terrifies me. It does. So I'm going to use that as my excuse when I tell you I knew nothing about the Purge movies. Yeah. So she took that role, of course, to kind of look up the Purge, kind of like how you mentioned too, Jessica. So
well, we saw the first Purge together, and she was yelping.
Are you serious? Oh my gosh, were you like holding hands where she's squeezing you?
It was me, Hannah, Lily, and our showrunner's assistant Bree all went to go see the movie
that's
together.
Awesome. Wow.
That's awesome.
It was a group effort.
What do you guys eat at the movies? Candy, popcorn? What's your?
We had at that movie theater. They had all different flavored popcorn, so we all got.
Oh
different
wow!
ones.
Oh, what theater is this?
Yeah, it was in New Orleans.
Okay, come through Nola.
They're fancy over there, Nola. Okay. All right. So the one of the third interview topics that Jenna was talking about with So Many Shows website. One of the questions was, right now the Purge is very intense. So what was the mood like on set? Any favorite moments? And Hannah says, we laughed a lot. It helped to combat the darkness of the world we were playing in. She also mentioned how it was just really hard to keep a straight face, get it? Pun intended, straight face. And that they were giggling uncontrollably. And she's talking about, of course, the triangle between her and Rick and Lila, which is played by Colin Waddell and Lily Simmons, which, I know you mentioned that you guys went to the theater together. Yeah. So I think it's just really funny when you kind of think about the behind the scenes and how they all kind of mesh together on set.
You just gotta laugh through it sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and the scenes that are that tense, you kind of have to break the tension somehow.
Something. So one of the other topics with Hannah, she is also involved in another movie. She is involved in the X-Men Dark Phoenix, which will be out in 2019 Valentine's Day. Yes. So take somebody. And there's a quick photo that shows a glimpse of her in the film, and she is playing. Let's see here. Let me just want to get this right. She is playing young Jean Grey's mother. That's my cousin, guys, Jean Grey. So we have a clip from the trailer, and let's go ahead and play it.
I just got what you said.
That's my cousin. And if you guys see, that's also Sophie Turner from Game of Thrones.
There we go.
I know, it looks so good. All right. So that's just a quick glimpse of the trailer. Guys, make sure you check that out. Remember, next year, Valentine's Day. And last but not least, Ms. Jessica Garza, I know you had an interview with The Collider a little while ago, and you talked about your role as Penelope, which we're glad to have you here. So I have a question for you because you did tweet earlier, or maybe it was an Instagram post where you said that you poured blood, literally, sweat and tears into this role, and that is a very special episode for you. You played a great role today. So my question for you is, what was one of the toughest scenes of this episode to film? Like from the tent to your scenes with Henry, like what exactly was maybe the toughest?
I think all of the scenes with Henry within the witch tent were that we kind of shot them all together. So we shot them all through once. It was just 6-7 hours we did that in, and so that was grueling. It felt so long for it being so short. But to counter that, the easiest scene I've done of the whole season is actually the rehab scene with Gabe, with Miguel. I just reading that scene broke my heart every single time. It was just so beautifully written. I didn't have to really put too much effort in it because it did it for itself. It was so beautiful.
Nice.
Awesome.
Very good.
Well, you did a beautiful job. And
Thank you.
Thank you. That's our news and gossip.
There we go. Now, before we leave here, of course, we've got to get in very, very quick. Let's get in a quick set of predictions.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV.
Oh boy.
Now let's gear these. I know we've got a lot of thoughts, but we haven't talked about the vigilante that's been appearing at the end of each episode. One of my absolute favorite actors, Lee Tergesen. So what predictions do you have regarding him?
They're trying to play us with his character. They're trying to make it seem like he's good, but I feel like he's bad.
You think so?
I think so. I think they're trying to screw with us a little bit. I don't know. It just seems a little bit. I'm like, okay, you're doing good, okay, but something's off. You know?
Sure.
The show's not as predictable as I thought it would be.
Right.
So, okay, so it looked like he was going to be bad. Then it looked like he could have been good. Now you think he might loop back around.
I just think he's bad.
Sure.
I don't trust him.
Of course. That's fair. Jaimi, what do you think?
I mean, I get what Ollie's saying, because it's hard to trust people in this show. Everyone's a little, But I think because we think like he's good, then he's bad. He's hot and cold. I think that he actually might be killed off.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because whenever someone kind of flip-flops like that, I feel like it's time for them to go. So I don't know how long he will last this season.
I see.
Yeah.
Daniel, what do you think?
I think he's gonna last the whole time. I think he's good, but I think there's something about him that's not stable.
I see.
And he doesn't like to work well with others. So this is a loner thing that he's got on. So yeah, there's something that's gonna hop off.
I'm thinking whether he's good or bad, I'm thinking he's going to have a run-in with Braca. And I'm thinking we might see a big old fight scene between the two of them.
At David's festivities.
Exactly. Guys, tweet us your predictions. Let us know what you think of him. Let us know what you think of the Matron Saints, of the cult. Whatever predictions you've got, no matter how wild they are, tweet them at us. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Before we leave, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you on social media and what you've got coming up?
Yeah, on Twitter, I am at Jess Garza, and on Instagram, I am at Jessica Garza. Got the name, nothing else.
There we go.
Nice.
You gotta get in there.
Someone got it.
For now, we're just seeing how this plays out. So it's fun. It's exciting. I like seeing what everyone says and what you guys think, and I'm really enjoying it.
Absolutely.
That's
Well, Steve, before we get out of here, can you hit us with that sweet intro music? And in the meantime, Ollie, where can they find you?
Hey guys, I'm Olli Genin. Find me on all social media platforms at Ollie Dreamer.
Jaimi
Hey
Gray.
guys, it's Jaimi. You can find me on Twitter. It's Jaimi Gray, or IG at Jaimi Gray.
Danny Royce.
Hey everyone, you can find me everywhere at I Am Danny Royce. Also tomorrow on Star After Show and Thursday in Empire After Show. Check it out.
There we go. Guys, my name is Ty Matthews. You can find me on all forms of social media at Ty Matthews PMA. Tune in to Championship Wrestling from Hollywood Saturdays, as well as the Lucha Underground After Show Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Pacific time. We'll be right back here, same time, same channel, next week, talking Season 1, Episode 6 of The Purge. We're trucking along, but until then, stay safe.
Stay safe.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz. Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.